wins here.
Other than Rd.8 Championship.
Oh, he's done it!
Look at these two go.
Oh, he's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to round 8 of the Formula SimRacing Pro Championship here from the Côte d'Azur, the Azure Grand Prix on the calendar for today. My name is Felix van Delft. Together with Richard King, we're going to take you through the action today. Got 63 laps of racing coming up, but of course first we're going to have to do the qualifying, and arguably, Richard, I would say qualifying here today is going to be the most important of the entire season, isn't it?
Definitely, you want to be higher up the grid, as high up as possible to give yourself the best opportunity during the race. Strategy is going to come into play, survivability across the 63 laps is going to come into play, but the further up you are, the better chance you have of winning this race, the better chance you have of avoiding anything if it was to go right behind. So all the drivers are going to be putting all of that effort into the 3 hot laps that they're able to put around the circuit. I think it's going to be a fantastic qualifying session and a fantastic race to follow, though.
Yeah, I think it definitely will be. Of course, Jukka-Pekka Lalu leading the championship still with quite a margin until Cosmo Pasciuto, who's about 26 points behind him, if I'm correct. So, Jukka-Pekka Lalu, he needs a good race, but he has a little bit of margin as well in the championship, considering there's only this race and then 2 races to go after this, of course. But I believe qualifying is just about ready to start, so let's have a look what the drivers are going to be doing here on the track.
Indeed, I think we are focused, definitely Matthew Williams. He has been on pole position all 3 times that he has attended in a Pro Series race, and he was fastest during the practice session earlier, so he is already out on the circuit, and I'm sure he's going to be trying his hardest to get his car back onto the front row of the grid. I mean, he's won every single race that he's raced this year, 3 of 3. He's got 3 more to go, and even though he came in round 5 in the championship, he could still win the championship, and he is taking it to a fight with Lalu, who hasn't won anything this year. He hasn't got it on pole position either, has Lalu, so he's going to want to try his hardest. He was looking good in practice, P2, so this could be a nice result for Lalu, who's not had a strong result since Le Mans, so he's going to want a good qualifying here as Williams comes into the final few corners to start his first hot lap.
Yeah, just coming across the line now, starting his first hot lap indeed into turn 1, of course, very important to get the entry, but also the exit right. Try to not hit the outside there, of course, then up the hill, up to Santevot into Casino. Very long left-hander, you want to make sure, again, stay away from the walls, but of course then also use as much space as you physically can into the hairpin. Try to slow the car down as much as possible. Full lock through there. Then exit here, coming into the tunnel, very important. Of course, DRS will be wide open through the tunnel, but you also, of course, want to have a good exit and braking here into the chicane. Try to avoid on the inside and on the outside there the barriers. Very close is Williams there, but so far very neatly through this lap swimming pool section. Flat out the first bit, then the chicane, a little bit of curb on the outside and a little bit of a tap on the wall on the outside there as well. Raskas again very tight, and the last corner is important. Try to use a little bit of that exit curb and across the start finish line to set a first lap time of a 1:11.177. Good banker lap for Matthew Williams. For now, of course, on pole position. But let's see what he can do coming through the rest of this qualifying session.
Did a really strong lap and was pushing absolutely to the limits. I think that was the closest you can go to those walls without touching them. He did have that little bit of a touch onto the barrier coming through this corner here that we're watching Van Vukas go through at the moment, who gets through there cleanly. Look at the speed. It was a nice first sector. It's looking like a good second, but again, a little bit of a touch on the wall. It seems to be just unsettling themselves into the final sector. Obviously, it's the tightest few corners on the circuit if you take away the hairpin, and he's just pushed it across the line and goes into P4. Half a second off of Williams' time, though, who is almost 4/10 clear of Cosmo Prosciutto, who is second in this championship. Lalu, championship leader, 5th position at the moment in qualifying. As we look there at Ivanov, currently 3rd position. He hasn't been racing at every single race so far this season, and it's really fallen him down the order a little bit in the championship. He has taken a win. He's taken 3 podiums. Can he go for another one here? As Lalu is running around at the moment on an outlap to see if he can improve on his 5th position grid slot. And he's going to want to, because obviously qualifying means absolutely everything here, and he's going to be really wanting to be on the first 2 rows of this grid as Williams goes for yet another flying lap. Can he improve on the 1:11.177 as he pushes to the absolute limits once again in his machine as he comes through? It looks like a little bit of a slide on the rear end, but looking smooth nonetheless. Going straight over the bump. Does not care about his spine one bit. He'll go the direct line possible into the hairpin. It looks like he kicked the rear out a little bit so that he could get through there faster, which would be an interesting tactic. A little bit of a bump with the wall, but it does not slow him down as he heads into the tunnel. The DRS open, of course, here in the FSR. We have got the 2 DRS zones up towards the chicane. Going to want to get it turned in. He hit the sausage curb on the first flying lap. He doesn't this time. It looks a lot smoother as he comes up towards the swimming pool section of the course. Look how fast they fly through. Again, a little bit of a bump onto the sausage curb. All clean this time, though, as he heads into the final 2 corners. The tightest part on the circuit, and he gets it right to the wall. And this is Ed Purple in the 2nd sector and Ed Purple in the 3rd, and overall fastest, a 1:10.7, almost 8/10 clear of this man here, Prosciutto. What a lap.
Yeah, a really fast lap there from Matthew Williams. 2nd and 3rd sector definitely good, and Prosciutto there messing up a little bit into back, hitting the outside barrier, and that's going to be a lap that's well, definitely according to the rules invalidated. He's going to try and finish it anyway, coming through the final corner, and also a mistake through there. Also probably a bit of damage on that car after the hit in the back, of course. So his 2nd run there not ending in a good fashion for Prosciutto, but Van Vukas looking strong in the 1st sector. Let's see what he can do in the 2nd.
Indeed, he pushes right to the limits as he heads into the final few corners. It was a white sector, which means slower than personal best in the middle. Green in the 1st. What is it going to be in the final sector? Is it going to be an improvement over his current lap time as he crosses the line, Van Vukas? It is an improvement, and he moves into P6. There's 1 position up, but he's still got 1 more flying lap to go, as have most of our drivers, as we watch Mancini come through the final corners on his 2nd flying lap. What is it going to be? Is it going to be an improvement as he crosses the line? It is a nice improvement, but no positions gained. Very close to his teammate Hanko, and just off of Lalu too, as the team of Royal Blue tried to dominate your top 10 there.
Yeah, looking very strong through there. Satsipantelis drifting it through the hairpin a little bit too much, I would say. Losing then also a bit of speed on the exit, obviously, and probably not going to get the best 2nd sector here. He's not giving up just yet. And of course, down in P11, about 1.2 seconds off pole position, so he's going to try and still improve, but I think the 2nd sector is going to be a bit down on his personal best. Let's see what he can do. Coming through to back. Very close to the barriers. A little bit of a snap on the exit as well. Flat out through the swimming pool. Overdoes it as well on the chicane, and definitely breaks his car into the barrier there, and that's not going to be an improvement for him, unfortunately. Williams once again Trying to drift it a little bit through that hairpin there. Not very successful this time around. Also losing a bit of time in that first sector, I believe.
Indeed, a little bit down in his first sector. I mean, Jasper Lantis, even with that massive drift into the hairpin, was green in the second sector too. So showing that even though he definitely lost a little bit of time on the exit, maybe drifting your way through is indeed faster over a single lap. Obviously not needing to worry about your tyre wear. What's it going to be in the second sector for Williams here? It is still down. So, yeah, it looks like he's not going to improve, but not that that really matters with Barbakov sitting 0.7 of a second away. This is definitely a battle to who is going to join Williams on the front row of the grid. It is Ivanov, though, one of the other drivers to win so far this season. Williams being the only multi-winner. Can Ivanov place his car onto the front row of the grid? A bit of a slide coming out of the final corner, though. Is it going to be an improvement across the line? Yes, it is, but it's only good enough for P3. And I mean, that is only just off of Barbakov's pace, who is not running his fastest lap in the opening sector here, but he is in the second.
Yeah, slight touch of the barrier as well coming into the chicane. Raskas, a little bit of oversteer on the exit, but that isn't too bad. Good exit out of the final corner as well. See what he can do. It's a big gap to Williams, of course, but he's also not able to improve his personal best.
So it looks like he is just going to have to keep his fingers crossed that the drivers behind do not improve. Van der Niet is out on the circuit at the moment. P4, it's not a personal best in the first sector, but Van der Niet obviously needing all the points he can get. Only 36 points off of Lalu in the championship, 90 still on offer with 3 more races. He's got Ivanov just ahead of him on the grid, but that's a scrape and definitely riding the wall a little bit on the outside there, but he's going to keep on pushing this lap. It is an improvement in the second sector. It looks a little bit squirrely under the braking, but into the final corner goes Van der Niet. Will it be an improvement? Will he be able to place himself higher up on the grid than P4? Across the line he goes. He goes to P3 as Lalu goes into P2, and that is exactly what Jukka Lalu is going to want. The championship leader is currently starting on the front row of the grid, and it doesn't look like there was anyone behind who is going to be able to challenge him for that. So it's the 2 teammates on the front row, but it is Lalu, championship leader in P2. Williams, who is trying to get into this championship fight, just ahead. Morville comes to finish the line, across the line then to finish his final flying lap. Is not an improvement. He will start in P15 as just looking at Sonneveld, he was racing in the the Academy Series, and he puts his car into the top 10. Here then is your qualifying results with Matthew Williams starting this race on pole position ahead of his teammate Jukka Lalu, who is over 0.6 of a second behind. That shows the domination for Williams. Van der Niet starts on 3rd position ahead of Barbakov, who put his car onto 4th. Ivanov starting in P5 ahead of Cosmo Prosciutto, who is 2nd in the championship. It is extremely tight for these drivers who are trying to worm their way to the top of the standings. Van Vukas is in 7th position on the grid. Behind him is Patrick Hanko. Mirko Mancini in 9th. And Sonneveld, as I was just saying, coming back off of a retirement in the Academy Series, he goes on to P10 on the grid here in Azure. So those top 10 drivers, they're going to be wanting to move up as quickly as they can on the early stages of this race.
Yeah, they definitely will. Of course, Williams really showing his quality here today. One of the toughest tracks on the calendar. 0.6 ahead of P2. Of course, Lalo is in the position where he needs to be. He just needs to make sure he gets a good start and a good strategy today, and then I would say he's got it quite safe regarding his championship. But of course, still anything can happen around this track. Of course, we're going to have a little bit of a look at what Michi Hoyer has to say about this track, obviously with his track guide around this Azure Grand Prix track, and then of course also a quick message from our sponsor 3D Wrap afterwards.
Welcome everyone to the SimRacing 2022 Series Round 8. and also in Formula Pro we are at Azure. So perfect weekend coming up for all the sim races as we go around the final turn to start our flyback around the Azure circuits. Turn 1, heavy braking zone. Make sure to make use of all the track available as you go up the hill towards the casino. A double apex left hander. Once again, want to get close to the walls and use as much ground available as possible as we go into Mirabeau. Easy on the braking as the car can become a little bit loose there. Full lock through the hairpin is the only time in the calendar that you do it. And a double right hander where you want to maximise the track available as much as possible. On the exit into the time, a short moment of breathing as we're going to have braking zone for the chicane. Arguably the best overtaking opportunity if there is any. Going into Tabak, want to kiss the inside wall, not touch it. Through the chicane, which you can see line up with the walls, line up with the areas, and then into the Raspass corner, first and second gear to be used into the final turn. This takes a little bit twitchy on the exit and across the light guys. That is one lap here around the Super Grand Prix. So who can keep it out of the walls? We're going to find out.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 8th round of the Formula SimRacing Pro Championship, made possible by, of course, our sponsors 3D Rep, Masita eSports, and our broadcast partner VCO, bringing us the action here today. My name is Felix van Delft, and Richard King alongside me. The Azure Grand Prix, 63 laps of racing is coming up, Richard, and strategy is going to be somewhat important, but of course track position is basically everything around this track, isn't it?
It is. Track position means absolutely everything. The pit stops aren't really that long at this circuit, but then again, the circuit itself isn't that long. I think we're going to see a mix of drivers starting on the softs and the mediums, as we saw earlier in the Academy race. I don't expect to see the hards at all in this race unless there's an unscheduled pit stop and a driver just wants to try and get to the end. The hards not really providing the grip that these drivers need. The softs, the mediums, that's where they're going to want to be through most of this race, and I think it's going to be an interesting one indeed. Keeping it clean as well as keeping it faster. 2 DRS zones here, so an extra overtaking opportunity into that chicane that we might otherwise not have seen.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's happening. Of course, also the push-to-pass system will help these drivers to do some overtakes. In the Academy Championship earlier today, we saw it is possible to do a few overtakes, but it's very difficult to do it without a little bit of argy-bargy, hitting each other, wheel banging a bit, or maybe even touching the walls a little bit. So let's hope these drivers keep it clean. Nice racing is of course great to see, but of course we always want to see it to be clean as well. But I think we're almost ready to have a look at the starting grid of this race, and obviously Matthew Williams will be starting from that pole position.
Indeed, Matthew Williams starting from the pole position spot for this race, and a dominant qualifying session for him, over 6/10 clear of the rest of the field. And it's Lalu, the championship leader, starting from P2. Danny Van Der Neat going nicely in qualifying P3, and Barbakov starting at the back of the second row. Ivanov starting in 5th position ahead of Prosciutto, who is looking to try and close the gap to his teammate in the championship lead from Vukas starting behind. And Hanko in P8. Mancini starting this race in P9 ahead of Sonneveld. Chatsipalantis is in 11th position, just outside the top 10 ahead of Lianos. Thomas Wack is starting in P13 ahead of Harry Smith. Morville in 15th position, and joining him on the 8th row of the grid is Tucson. Cameron Roger will start from 17th on the back row of the grid. He is joined by Zaharov, who also was taking part in the Academy Series race earlier, but didn't have the race that he was hoping for. This is going to be a fantastic 63-lap race, though, and I don't know how it's going to end up, because every time I've tried to predict one of these, I've got it dramatically wrong.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Formation lap is already underway, and Matthew Williams leading them through the lap, coming into the tunnel in just a second. And he's looking to start on that medium compound together with Lalu. I'm not quite sure if everything's updated yet, so just a few tires of a few drivers still updating. But most of the drivers in the top 10 looking to start on that medium tire. Just Danny van der Niet and Victor Ivanov, the Netrex driver, starting on that soft tire. And that's, I think, going to hurt them quite a bit, because obviously they will have some trouble getting past these medium drivers and extract the potential from that soft tire pace.
He's got to have a really quick start to get past those medium tire runners ahead of him. And as you say, that's could be quite challenging for him, but with the pace that they were off of Williams, it could be that all he's looking to do is get past Lalu and not necessarily get past Williams, who might have very similar pace on those medium tyres. But the soft tyres does mean that he is going to have to come into the pits early, which will give up his track position that he currently has, which we've obviously mentioned. It means everything. Is that looking like Barbakov very out of grid spot there?
Yeah, I think it's just about within the legal limits of rFactor, but he's definitely putting his car into an aggressive position as we see the 4 and 5 lights coming alight, and we are underway for round 8 of the Pro Championship here in Azure, and it's a great start for the car from Vukas, and from Vukas already into P3. A little bit of argy-bargy with the Netrex drivers. Victor Ivanov and Danny van der Niet side by side coming up the hill into Saint Devot, and Ivanov dropping out to van der Niet there, down to 4th position.
A good start from Barbakov moving into P3. Williams and Lalu getting off cleanly. Van der Niet, not so much. There was definitely some contact with the wall for some of these drivers, though, and that's obviously not going to help their cars, as that's a front wing off and a car around going into the hairpin. So some issues at the back, and we mentioned how important qualifying was, and one of the reasons is to get out of those issues. That's 3 cars I've counted without front wings, and they'll be very early stops indeed that they were not hoping for. As green flags waving through the tunnel. Hanko, one of the drivers without a front wing.
Yeah, I think quite a big accident there. We saw, I think, Shatsi Pantelis, he was there rolling down towards the lowest hairpin. Definitely not what you want to see. Always, of course, a bit of a difficult spot. A lot of bunching up there as everybody hits the brakes a little bit earlier than normal, of course, coming into the hairpin on the first lap, and probably a few drivers getting caught out there. From Vukas, P9, I think he dropped back as well a little bit there. Yeah, he's also into the pits. Yeah,
he lost his front wing during that. You can see 4 cars down into the pits now. Chaspelantis out of the race early on, so that is a real shame for those drivers. It's promising for the drivers who were starting near the rear, who kept clean during all of that. There is quite a big gap now from your leading 8 drivers down to the ones behind. However, it doesn't look like a lot of damage being picked up. Let's have a look at what happened there as we are on board with Chatspilantis, who is out of the race following this first lap. Instantly moves to the left-hand side of a competitor. Is going to be a bit of contact. It's squeezed into the wall, and he goes over and over and over, rolling his way down the hill, and then he loses his front wing after the incident occurred. So that's a real horrible way to start.
Yeah, obviously got squeezed into the wall there, and then nowhere to go for him. Flipped around, and then the traffic jam caught up there. I think also a few drivers in front already had a bit of bumper cars, and somebody lost their front wing in front of him as well, but definitely not what you want to see. And indeed, Chatsupantel is the first DNFer of this race.
And hopefully not too many more to follow, but this is a new strategy now being played by those drivers who have come to down into the pits, and it's soft tyres for all of them apart from Zaharov, who's decided to go onto the medium. So definitely having to change how they are attacking this race now. We're looking at Ivanov, though, who's following Van der Neet. It is still Williams leading the way, though, but hasn't pulled away as much as I was expecting over Lalu. Now, of course, both of them on the medium compound tyres. It is a 1-2-3 at the moment for the Royal Blue teammates, and it's Barbakov also on the mediums in third. So this could be Williams just taking a bit easy. Yes, it's a championship rival behind him. However, it's also a teammate, and they're not going to want to get involved in incidents this early on. They're going to want to keep it clean. So is Williams perhaps going a bit slower than he would, but his potential pace is for?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, of course, just trying to manage the pace. Don't take unnecessary risks. You know you're in front. It's difficult for Lalo to get past you. Even considering he's your teammate, he's probably not going to make any do or die moves on him. So just manage the gap. Save a bit of tires perhaps, and just drive it out until the end of the race.
Indeed, looking early on in these stats, then Williams won every race he's currently competed in the Pro Series this year. Lalu yet to win in the Pro Series, and not just this year, in the multiple years that he has been competing here. So Lalu definitely has something to look towards. Williams, looking in his rearview mirrors, doesn't look like he's going to be too phased in these early stages, as you said. But Van der Neet, he's going to want to try and get into those top three positions early on the soft tyres, of course. He looks to the inside of Barbakov, nowhere near close enough to try and make that move, but he is making himself known in Barbakov's mirrors. And Van der Neet, this is not going to help his strategy being on those softs. He wants to be pulling away from these drivers ahead of him and try to open a little bit of a gap ready for his pit stop.
Yeah, you can really see through the corners he's gaining quite a lot of ground to Barbakov, but just nowhere to go. What he needs to do is either get a good exit out of this final corner or get a good exit coming into the tunnel, and then maybe make a move into the chicane, into the Nouvelle chicane. That's the real only opportunity for overtaking him, maybe into the Raskas, but that has to be a do or die move, and maybe a little bit too early in the race to do that.
Definitely, we were seeing those sort of overtakes going on in the Academy Series, of course, and I think you're right, they're definitely do or die moves, and being 5 laps into a 63-lap race, I think we will see them, but we'll see them much later on in the competition, not within the opening, probably the whole first stint for these drivers. They're going to want to try and make the moves, but only if the opportunity opens for them. However, I think we're going to see what we're seeing right now, a little bit of a train, not really too many moves being made, but this is exactly what Lalu wants. It's yes, fine if he doesn't win a race for the rest of this year. Yes, fine if Williams wins all the races the rest of this year. The gap between those two drivers is currently sitting at 37 points in the championship, and 37 points it's not going to be enough to close for Williams, even if with wins, if Lalu can continue to contend as strong as he is here today.
Yeah, it's just a question now, I think, who's going to be the first to bite the bullet for the first pit stop. Obviously, you would think it's going to be Danny van der Neet or Victor Ivanov on that soft tire. A little bit more degradation. Of course, it's quite a low degradation track anyway, so I would assume everybody is going to try and do the one stop just because that track position is so important. If you do a two stop and somebody in front of you does a one stop, it's very difficult to get past him to try and make that two stop work. So I think the one stop is going to be the one to go for here today, but who's going to be the first one to go into the pits to try and make that work? Of course, if you're stuck like Van der Neet and Ivanov, an undercut might be quite powerful here.
Indeed, in the undercut, yes, he would have worn medium tyres near the end of the race. However, he's going to be in front of the drivers behind who are going to be stuck like he is right now. So an undercut could be beneficial, but I would say with the 63 laps ahead of us, being on those soft tyres, we're not going to see pit stops on those softs until at least lap 20, maybe even a bit further, 25 to 30 even on those softs. They're going to want to try and take them as far as possible. And if they're stuck in this train, yes, fine, he can't push those softs to the fullest potential. However, he can take them longer into this race because he is sat behind other drivers. He's not losing time. He's not pushing those tyres too hard. He is just simply following the cars in front of him. Just feeling like he's a bit on the motorway at the moment. He's got the cars in his rearview mirror, not really able to go anywhere at this stage. The cars in front of him, he's not really able to go anywhere at this stage. But the next drivers obviously going to want to beat the Royal Blue, because we've been talking about the Drivers' Championship, but the Teams' Championship, there's only 42 points between Royal Blue Racing and Networks Grand Prix, and currently Royal Blue take the top 3 spots, but then Networks are sitting in 4th and 5th. They're going to want to move through, if they can, to try and maximise their points potential here.
Yep, they definitely do. And yeah, like we say, it's just getting stuck here now. Then even you can see him having a little bit of a sniff there into Raskas, maybe scaring Barbukov in front of him a little bit, trying to rattle him into making a mistake. But so far, the Royal Blue drivers really consistent, very steady throughout this first 8 laps, and no mistakes so far.
Indeed, the drivers that stopped at the beginning, I'm looking down, Van Bucas, Hanko, Mancini, Zaharov, their fastest laps, apart from Zaharov's, are faster than absolutely everyone in front of them. Van Bucas, it is Hanko who currently holds the fastest lap of the race with a 1:14.022. So he is really, well, all of them are really pushing those soft tyres, because the fact they've gone onto the softs, they are expecting another pit stop, of course, later into this race. They stopped on the first lap. They're not going to be able to go the whole way without stopping again. However, with how much they're pushing, are they going to try and possibly go and catch the top 10 even, I would say, is possible for these drivers, even though they're currently sitting about 12 seconds off of Cameron Roger, who is P13 and last of the drivers who haven't pitted so far in this race. He said he wanted to focus on the race and get through to the end cleanly, and that's what he's currently doing in the opening 10 laps, as we're on board with Lianos here, who is stepping in for his teammate Ferenczi in the ground effect team. Lianos doing quite well in the Academy Series, not racing in it today as he wanted to focus on the Pro Series race, but he has just dropped down to 3rd position in that Academy Series. But he is showing some good pace getting into the car in this Pro Series.
Yeah, it's kind of 2 groups on the track right now. You have the first group from, of course, first place to Gijs Sonneveld in 7th. And then Thomas Wack, who's a little bit in no man's land. And then you have the second trainer, Kevin Morville. And basically all the way down to Cameron Roger, who's a little bit further behind, but not too far behind this train. And then behind that you have those 3-4 drivers that have made a pit stop in the first lap to get repairs and also fresh soft tires, but also catching up already towards this P10 train effectively.
Indeed, the 3 trains just going through. And as you say, Wack is in a sort of no man's land here. And I'd say that that can either feel one of 2 ways for a driver. When you're in a train, you focus on the person in front of you, you're able to follow through and can race sometimes a lot more consistently. However, could Wack be in the best position of them all? He hasn't got the drivers too close in front of him. He hasn't got drivers too close behind him, which means he hasn't got the pressure. But the same goes, if there is something that happens in this train, which is all so close, and they are looking to see if they can find any moves, if there's any sort of incidents, Wack's far enough back to not get involved but benefit from that. So I think Wack, even though he is in a bit of no man's land, might be the safest driver out on the track right now.
Yeah, definitely. And his strategy decisions, whatever you might choose to do, might go a little bit unnoticed towards these drivers as well, because of course they're focusing on everybody in this train, and Wack, being a little bit further behind, might be able to do something that these drivers don't expect and then catch them out during the pit stop cycle.
And we're thinking maybe we'll be about halfway through what I'm predicting to be the earliest stops for the soft tyres at least. So we're going to see, once they do stop, that's going to be Vandeny and Ivanov out of this train in this fight. Thinking about how long pit stops are, about 20 seconds down pit lane, they will come out behind Cameron Roger at this point as Tucson retires from the race from 16th position, and he was one of the drivers that came down after lap 1, so it's really not gone the way of that ground effect driver. We're going to have a replay, see what happened.
Yes, it was in the tunnel then, coming into the tunnel here. Maybe he tapped the wall as he opened DRS. No, all good through. Oh, a bit of a lag spike, I think, and then car just effectively disintegrated on hitting the wall. Let's have a look at it again from the offboard. Coming into the tunnel here, everything looks okay, and then I think he has a bit of a lag spike right as he is in the tunnel in the corner, and then hits the outside barrier there, and it's just a little bit of a curb that sticks out, hits that, and effectively demolishes that left-hand side of the car, removes the rear tire, and end of the race for him.
That is a real shame. Not the race that Tucson would have wanted. His luck has not really been there this season, but we are back looking at your top 6 once again. It looks like they are, well, sorry, top 7, because Sonneveld on the back of this. Sonneveld, of course, standing in here in the Pro Series, just a reserve driver, and he's on the back of this train that goes all the way to the lead. I honestly thought that Williams was just going to pull away from the start, but this could be one or two things. He is just hanging back a little bit, being on those medium tyres, deciding not to pull away, or because of the 2 DRS zones, obviously they're entering the first of the DRS zones now, and the other one being on the pit straight. Is it just that he can't escape the drivers behind him without risking putting it into the wall? Because we saw how close Williams was to every single barrier during the qualifying lap, and that's not something that you want to risk in the race. So he could be genuinely struggling to pull away from this DRS train behind him, and the strategy call is going to be so important. When does he decide to pit as well? Is it going to be before the drivers behind him, risk being undercut, or is he going to be the first to bite the bullet on the medium tyres? Of course, being his teammates behind him in 2nd, 3rd and in 6th position, he has a bit more insight as to what's going to happen behind, as they are all of the drivers on the mediums.
Yeah, I would say looking at the pace, they're doing basically 16 low, which is really quite slow. If you compare it to the academy times, they were doing 15s around there. So for this pace, I would almost say that Williams is just really taking it easy, making sure he gets to the end of the race, but also maybe helping his teammates a little bit, try and pressure everybody in that train, maybe forcing them into a mistake, forcing them into the drivers behind. You can see the train is growing as well now, with Sonneveld right behind, and Peugeot as well. I would say even if I was Sonneveld and you really noticed on those soft tires, you're getting stuck now, maybe go bold, go early on the pit stop, try and undercut pretty much everybody in front of them.
Which would definitely work at this point with the pace that they're all going in front. And it looks like Williams is almost backing them up so much that Wack is actually closing into this. And we talked about Wack being a bit of no man's land, but maybe not for much longer at this pace, because looking at the pace of Wack, it's a 1:16.2 last lap, so yeah, matching those of the leaders, but all the way back down to Hanko, 1:14.9. He is absolutely flying down there at the moment, P14, obviously on his soft tyres after lap 1 stop. So that's almost 2 seconds difference between what those leaders are doing and what they're doing down at the back. So it could be helping him in the short term, but long term, think about what those drivers behind are doing. He could get seriously undercut in this race, as you say.
Yeah, they have to be very careful about that. But of course, we're still quite early. I think anyone that would be stopping now is really too early. It would bite them when they are at the end of the race. 50 laps to go. If you go to mediums now, not gonna end well, I think. But that window is starting to come closer and closer. I think from about lap 20 onwards, we might see somebody just gambling for it.
And I think that's what this is going to be. It's going to be a gamble for these drivers, because otherwise you're not going to really move up in this position. We've seen a few looks here and there, but no full attempts at the moment. And that's, it's early on. You don't want to risk damage your car, especially as a lot of these drivers, and I know that a lot of the FSR drivers across the board watch the races in the other categories. And these drivers, the pro drivers, would have been watching the Academy series that have just been, and would have been taking note of where the overtaking opportunities are, but at the same time, would have definitely been taking note of how easy it was to rub against your rival, put yourself into a barrier, put someone else into the barrier. And yes, you haven't got to think or worry too much about someone else necessarily. However, that could be stewards being extremely busy with a cup of, many cups of coffee at the end of this weekend. But currently, I'd say this is, apart from the opening lap, one of the cleanest Azure races that I've seen so far.
Yeah, everybody very calm and collected, just waiting for that first round of pit stops. And then I think it's all going to kick off with this massive train, of course. If somebody in this train goes, and the rest of the train is going to have to react to that in some way, either by picking up pace to try and prevent the undercut from being too strong, or covering it up by pitting the next lap themselves as well. But like we said, that's still a few laps away. So now it's just carrying on, making sure the car stays in one piece until you do that first pit stop at least.
Indeed, and when is that first pit stop going to be? We're almost at that 20 lap mark, which we're obviously thinking that we're going to see some bold drivers on the soft tyres. Definitely, if it's a one stop, we're not going to see those drivers on the mediums until at least 35, even 40 possibly, because you don't want to stretch those softs too much. However, that's going to be really beneficial for Rd.8 and Ivanov, obviously being on the soft tyres. They come in early and get onto the mediums. By the time the drivers, Williams, Lalu, Barbakov, if they continue at the pace they're currently going, which is a 1:16 average lap, they're going to be significantly far behind. But at that point, it's all the teammates together, so we could see a change in pace.
Yeah, and obviously also it's a bit of a question if Williams is saving his tires for exactly that moment. If the soft drivers behind decide to go into the pits early, then he picks up the pace and is able maybe to, maybe not match them on the fresh mediums, but get close to it and effectively cover off that undercut and maybe even go for an overcut. But I would doubt that is really possible with these tires. Who knows? We always get surprised here in this pro category. A lot of things being tried and sometimes working, sometimes not so much.
So we are on board Lianos at the moment, who is chasing Morville. Did have a little look at the end of last lap to possibly make the move up into P9. He didn't quite go for it. I am focusing on the wheel, however, for Lianos, because I'm pretty sure there is some sort of suspension damage. When he's going in a straight line, that wheel seems to be slightly off kilter. Now, I don't know if that's just the way the circuit is, that there's not really any true straights. But look there. Yeah, it looks like he's picked up some damage somewhere, which is going to be hindering him as they come up to the chicane. He goes right onto the back, and it looks like Lianos is faster in a straight line, but he's just not able to keep up with Morville due to possibly this damage, and he's just not able to be close enough to make the overtake at the moment. That was a lot of curb by Morville as they head into the final few corners. A very different line for Lianos heading into the final two corners, but he once again remains behind, but he is definitely looking feisty. Yeah,
he definitely is, and again, just difficult to overtake here. Like you say, the DRS helping him with the top speed, but there's just nowhere to get past. This train is just getting closer and closer. It's just bumper cars at this point. One massive row of cars from Williams all the way down to Sonneveld, and Wack very slowly but steadily catching up to this train slightly. About 5 seconds behind them now. And everybody coming through the tunnel there. And then he must be thinking, what can we do to try and capitalize on our soft tires still? Because 20 laps almost now into the race. The softs haven't been used effectively. And they're going to have to go to the mediums, of course, in their second stint, according to the tire rules.
Indeed, but I think because of how little they've been pushing, they can make that choice now, because I think the tyre wear is going to be a lot less for them than they were probably planning for originally. So they can go later if they want to, knowing what the drivers ahead are going to do, or with pushing the moment they stop. It could be that, well, obviously they're both in this championship fight. One could decide to pit and go for the undercut and keep the other one out and try to risk pushing the Royal Blue drivers just a bit too hard in the stop. But whatever's being played in a team game right now is going to be interesting to see how it comes out at the end of it. But I noticed that Van Vukas and Hanko are in for second stops after their lap 1 stop. Hanko onto a fresh set of softs and Van Vukas onto mediums. So could be trying to go to the end from here. Bandit coming through then, still in P4, and a nice train of drivers. Sonneveld just sitting at the back of this train. He's on the soft tyres, so again, he can come earlier. Now, Sonneveld's someone who's reserving here. He's not here to make much of a championship impact, and he doesn't need to worry about a whole championship result. He's just thinking about individual race results. Now, this is a driver who could jump into the pit lane very early indeed and take advantage of a massive undercut if Van der Neat and Ivanov stay out and Williams continues to back up the pace. As you said, a driver that very much could go unnoticed with a strategy.
Yeah, I noticed that they are picking up the pace a little bit. Last lap, Williams was 59, and Barbakov, Van der Neat, Ivanov all going into the 15.7, 15.6 range. So the pace is being picked up a little bit. Starting to drive a little bit faster. Making use of those medium tires a bit more, of course, but it looks like those soft tires also still have quite a bit of pace in them. But perhaps they are starting to prepare themselves for that pit stop phase, trying to pick up the pace now a little bit to try and prevent that undercut from being too powerful.
And it looks like Cameron Rogers made a move past Harry Smith at some point recently, as he moves into P11. So that's a good job. He's only just ahead. And as I notice, it's raining. It is coming down. I've just looked up from my timing sheets as we're coming through the final 2 corners. The rain is here, and I was not expecting that whatsoever. So forget what we said about strategy. This could be an entirely different race all of a sudden.
This is very, very interesting. I thought the weather forecasts were pretty clear today. Very much sunny, but perhaps not so much today. A little bit of rain coming down, and it looks to be coming down quite hard now. So this is going to throw everything into the bin effectively for these drivers with their strategy. They're going to have to improvise now. Feel when the car doesn't have enough grip anymore on these slick tires to continue, and then at the perfect time come in for those wet tires, because again, still that track position is very important. If you go too early onto the wet tires and you're too slow, you're going to lose that track position to everybody that stayed out for 1 lap longer. But if you go too late, you might risk going into the barrier, just sliding off the track on the slick tires that have no grip anymore in the wet.
Indeed, and you can see it's already getting more punchy. As this rain has started to fall, drivers are now really having a look, pushing up right to the rear end. I don't think it's going to be long before we need to see the wet compounded tyres starting to come. Look at this onboard shot of Ivanov. Look how wet his car is. It is absolutely covered in rain, and I have no idea where it came from. As you said, the weather looking quite clear today. I was looking at the timing sheet, suddenly saw the icon change, looked back, and it is just coming down. The soft tyres, they are going to be able to push. The pace you can already see is definitely picking up as these drivers are trying their hardest now to try and increase the gap to the drivers behind, as Wack has lost a lot of time, not a pit stop but a mistake, as he falls a little bit further towards this train that's currently following Morville.
Yeah, Sonneveld, I think he's the most unlucky driver of this entire thing. He just did his pit stop as the rain started to come down. Question is, how long will it keep raining? If the rain is hard enough to actually wet the track enough. Of course, there is quite a few drivers still on this track that are effectively just drying it up all the time. So going for a move here around the outside of Lianos. He makes it stick. Very nicely done there by Gijs Sonneveld. Getting a move into that Nouvelle chicane is not easy, but he's done it there.
He has made a nice move. I think there was a little bit of contact on the first part of the chicane, but it did not deter Sonneveld whatsoever. Moved into P9, as you say. Could be a bad strategy call there in terms of pitting just as it starts to rain. However, could this rain subside in a little bit, very possibly, and start to make it continue to be a dry race? As you said, cars continually running around the circuit is going to keep the racing line drier for the time being, especially as they go through this tunnel, which is going to be untouched by the weather at this early point in the rain. But the top 6 train is going to be interesting what happens here, because Sonneveld could really benefit from this if it stays dry. He could have an amazing undercut strategy, play his way, take him into the lead, or he could have just thrown it all away with that call. It looks like Ivanov getting a little bit uncomfortable as that's Van der Neat diving into the pit lane. What is it going to be? Is it going to continue to be dry tyres, or is it going to be wet tyres as he comes to stop?
Looking at the radar, it looks like it's still going to keep raining for at least around 30 minutes. So I think it would be wise to go into the wets, but Van der Neat, no, he goes to the dries, probably thinking it will not rain enough to dry up the track enough. He actually goes to the hard compound. Surely that's not correct. I think that's just a bug of the game, not updating the tires soon enough. Or maybe he is actually on those hard tires, trying to go onto the end of the race. 40 laps to go, of course. It is a big gamble now with the rain coming down. But maybe it will work if it stays dry for him. The undercut is now very important. He needs to really push these tires in the first couple of laps to try and make that work.
The rain is definitely having effect for all the drivers. Williams' times are now down to 1:16.4, and he is pushing because the drivers behind him, 1:18s are their lap times right now, and the gap for your leader, Williams, is just opening up. I think we are going to see these wet tyres come into play, and Van der Neat and Sonneveld, maybe they have some... they can see the future in some way, and they can say, no, it's going to stay dry. But Sonneveld did come on for a second set of softs, which is an interesting one, because obviously he has to have 2 different compound tyres, so he has to go for another stop, which could be a wet tyre stop, and he just physically couldn't push those softs any further. Van Vukas and Wack are on to wet tyres at the back of the field. So what's going to be interesting now is to watch their lap times and see if they are going faster than the drivers at the front.
Yeah, exactly. And you really start to see these guys sliding around a little bit more now as the rain comes down further and further. It's getting wetter and wetter. Of course, that track is being dried up by these drivers, but perhaps not enough to really dry it up enough. Cameron Roger also switched to those wet tires now. So 3 drivers on those wet tires, and like you said, it is very interesting to see what they will be able to do lap time wise. Van Vukas, Wack, Cameron Roger, those are the drivers to watch now with their lap times.
Indeed, and it looks like Van Vukas is back down the pit lane. Is that going to be coming off of the wets? Was it too early to make that call. We shall see, or was it possibly a damage that's forced him into the pit lane? We're on board with Ivanov. They are still looking okay enough to stay on these dry compounder tyres, and Ivanov getting right to the rear end of Barbakov. He's looking, not able to make any way through at this. I'm going to say it's still very early stage in this race. We're yet to reach the halfway point. Bambuka's back onto medium tyres, so I think it's too early for the wet compound at this stage. So Cameron, Roger and Wack, let's see if they're able to do anything. Or as you said, you could be coming in way too early. Yes, that's a bit of a slide from Ivanov. You could be coming in way too early and risking a lot of time lost, and I think that's what's happening at the moment. Wack falls a lap down.
Yeah, you could see with the lap times, Wack was doing about 125, 126 on that wet tire, and at the front, oh, there's a front wing there from somebody. At the front, they were still doing around 121, 120. Who is this? Who's lost his front wing though?
Not too sure, but Vanderneet's also onto wet tires now.
Lianos, I think.
Oh, that was not good at all as he dives into pit lane. Zaharov on pit lane 2. It looks like Smith P12 is just off of Roger, about 3 seconds behind at the moment. So that's going to be interesting. Will Smith be able to close up to Roger nice and quick, or will this be Roger pulling away? Let's find out. Ivanov taps the wall on the exit of the first turn. That's not what he's going to want. It's going to be who bites the bullet first out of these top 4. Ivanov's soft tyres surely going off now, but you can tell he is not going to pit yet. Those wet tyres are not up to speed at the moment, and he goes around. He's lost his front wing. He might not want to pit, but he's gonna have to. What is he going to do? Wet tyres or dry tyres? As about 4 cars so far on your wet. Bambuka's still down pit lane. I think he may be out of this race because he's down. That's what, 4th or 5th stop at this point.
Yeah, I think for Ivanov, it is pretty much he has to gamble for the wets, I think. If he goes for the dries now and then it keeps raining, it goes to the wets, and he's going to lose twice the amount of time. Of course, it's still going to be effectively race for the top 10 over for him, I would think. But who knows what might happen here. I think looking at the times now, Cameron Roger with a 123 on those wet tires. Williams, 122. The crossover point is right about now. So timing-wise, I think Ivanov going to the wets now would have been almost perfect. But, of course, slightly unfortunate that he doesn't have a front wing.
Indeed, Lianos also out of this race now. So Ground Effects team race has drawn very dramatically to a sad end, being at the back of the field with Bambukas in P15. Lalus, though, still looking like he's okay in P2, but you can just see the gap that Williams has. Almost 10 seconds. He is pushing hard on these mediums, and he knows the limit of these cars. Get this man a drive in the World Championship, because he is flying around this circuit.
It's really wet now.
Sliding that rear end. Surely this is going to be the choice now to come onto the wet tyres. Sonneveld on the wets, Vanderneet on the wets. We still got Hanko and Morville on the softs. More and more coming down the pit lane and deciding it is time for the wet compound tyres. What is Williams going to do?
Surely he has to look at that grip he doesn't have. No, he stays out.
He does stay out, and Ivanov is on the medium compound tyres. He did pit, didn't he?
He did.
He did. So he's decided to stay on the dry. So I think this is now definitely the crossover point where neither tyre is working better than the other. Williams' last lap, a 1:24 as Barbakov stops. Is this the first of the Royal Blue drivers to go for wets? It is. And he's going from 3rd. This could be a good choice from Barbakov, who's going to want to try and jump his 2 teammates, because Zaharov's last lap on wets matched Lalu's last lap on dries. And obviously Zaharov falling a lot, well, lapping a lot slower than his competitors at the front. So that's showing you that the wet tyres are definitely coming into play. And this one lap earlier by Barbakov could make a huge difference. A jumping Lalu at least. Williams was obviously a massive gap ahead.
Yeah. I think Williams, of course, he has a bit of playroom to what he had. Ooh, that's a slow car there. I think that's from Vukas again. Yeah, must have been. Van Vukas again in the wall there into back. Williams stays out again. Stays out for another lap. He really doesn't want to get rid of these dry tires just yet, as we see Victor Ivanov and Gijs Sonneveld. Ivanov on those medium tires without a front wing again. Without a front wing again for Ivanov. So he must have had an incident as well. Once again here, Gijs Sonneveld on the wet tires. Ivanov must go out of the way here now for Sonneveld without a front wing. There's no reason to keep battling him. And Ivanov must have made a mistake once again. Let's see if we can find out what happened there.
Yes, and I think he's made a mistake not just on track, but by choosing the medium compounder tyres instead of the wets. Let's see what happens over the bump, obviously where the tunnel goes underneath the track. Is going to be a double lockup heading. He's already lost it there. Yeah, so where has he lost that? Possibly turn one. That is a very big part of the circuit to obviously lose your front wing. And he was fighting though, and that's a strange thing to do, to really defend your position when you've not got a front wing. And I think that is not going to be Barbakov very happy at all. Let's see what happens. He's got his front wing going up to turn number one. It doesn't look like he's going to be leaving with it though. Ooh.
Oh no, he still.
He does.
He spins on the exit.
He made the corner and just a bit too much power on the wet circuit. It's the dry line is just completely disappearing. As you can see, it is just 4 cars left on the dry. Smith in P10, Basciuto in P4, Lalu P2, and this man's Williams. He stays out.
I don't. His lap time just now, or last lap, 26.2. This lap, let's see what it is. He actually had a cut, so no lap time registered for him. But behind him, Barbakov, Basciuto on the wets. No, he's also on the dries. Sonneveld on the wets, a little bit slower. But Van der Niet, I would say, he's faster, 25.8. So that's a second faster than Williams on that last lap. Not even counting the lap that he cut on. You can just see he's sliding so much understeer in this car. He barely gets it around the hairpin. Bit of a slide as well. So surely the wet tire must be quicker now. And also just for safety. It's just a small mistake, as we've seen with Victor Ivanov. Can put you in the barrier and out of the race here.
I think that's it. It's the safety aspect of it. If you push too hard, yes, your wets are going to be the better tire to be on because you can control it a lot easier. However, it looks like pace-wise, it doesn't look like these soft tires are actually much slower as long as you keep it together. It's a triple retirement for the ground effect team, as Van Vukas, after many an issue at the back of the field, is also joining his teammates in the garage, which is a real shame for them. Williams coming up to a back marker now. Is this going to be finally onto the wet tyres, or is he going to go into almost half distance in the rain? Yes, he's coming in finally. Barbakov is obviously into P2 now, 5 seconds ahead of Lalu. So that's showing you what the undercut really did. And can Barbakov take the lead? 20 seconds is an average pit stop length. Will he be able to get past Williams, or will Williams be able to get out in time? It looks like he is going to get out ahead. But Barbakov jumping Lalu, the championship leader, which is going to benefit Williams in the overall points haul. Out he comes, so he's going to keep it between the wall and the yellow line, nice and easy. And I think that was a great time for Williams to come in, as it looks like Sonnevald's gone straight on. He's lost his front and his rear wing. Sonnevald has not had a great day across the board today in the Academy Series of retirement, and here without a rear or a front wing. But he is going to get it around the circuit though and get it back to pit lane. Basciuto remains on the softs.
Did he also? Oh, he already lost it before this. Really lost it quite long ago then. I can find exactly where, but here? Oh, also already lost it there. Not sure exactly what happened to Sonneveld there, but without a rear wing, without a front wing, must have happened somewhere in start-finish then, I guess. And in pit lane now to get it replaced. The gap between Barbakov and Williams, 6 seconds. So Williams, of course, had that buffer a little bit and has made use of that. Barbakov not able to undercut him too much, but he gained a bit on that wet tire.
Peugeot has got to come into the pits if he doesn't want to throw away this position to Van der Neat, because the gap is about 21 seconds, which should pull him out just in the lead ahead of this driver here, Van der Neat. But that's a really late call to be coming on to the wets, but it was all the Royal Blue drivers. Williams, Lalu, Peugeot, all of them coming in late, but it is going to be Peugeot finally about 10 laps after we started to see the rain fall here in Azure. Peugeot finally comes down pit lane. Will Van der Neat be able to take this position? Van der Neat coming through the exit of the swimming pool section. When does Peugeot start moving? He is moving and he's nearing the exit of the pit lane, getting himself back onto the circuit, and he is going to hold onto P4. So Van der Neat into P5. He has got the 4 teammates ahead of him, and Van der Neat is going to want to try and move through as quickly as he can past Peugeot. Obviously, Van der Neat 4th in the championship. He's only 10 points behind Peugeot, so every position counts against his rival here. As it looks like Wack could possibly be back on the dry tyres, which is an interesting call. Is the rain starting to
He definitely
come
is.
down?
I think he's just trying, but I don't see this would be fast because the lap times are still around the 127 on those wet tires. And you can see a bit of spray forming as well. I think in front of him, somebody outbraked him there.
That was Zaharov, who outbroke himself and gained quite a bit of time by doing so, which might be looked at. But Wack slides in the softs, he slams himself into the wall, and yeah, those soft tyres are not for running around this Azure circuit. At the moment, he might as well be in the water that is next to the bay as Zaharov dives into pit lane, possibly to repair some damage that is on his car. But we look back at Cameron Roger, who has done a stonker from what is pretty much the back of the field at the start of this race. No, I jinxed it. For P6, he's thrown himself in the wall. He obviously heard me talking about him, and he's decided he doesn't want to be in the top 10. He'll come in for a new front wing and a new set of wets.
He was so close. So close. He did such a great job in taking those tires relatively early and effectively undercut quite a few people there. But now, well, he put it in the bin.
I need to stop talking about him. Every time I start to talk, it looks like Zaharov has decided, you know what? This idea of running the circuit on dry tyres sounds like a good one. He's onto hard tyres. What are these drivers doing at the back? Knowing that, they've got... Thing is, if they get to the end of this race, they have got points. But they might decide, actually, this rain feeling a little bit lighter. Certainly not looking like a dry line is forming, but they're certainly giving it a go on those non-grooved tyres at the back. We're looking at Barbakov, though. The gap to the leader of Williams is 11 seconds, which has increased by about 5 further seconds since the pit stop stages started on these wet tyres. So Williams definitely holding his pace back at the start, and he looks very comfortable and feels like one of the very few drivers who was prepared for the change of conditions.
Yeah, his pace is about 2 seconds a lap quicker now than the drivers behind him. So really, really stretching out that lead by quite a margin every lap. He's just so much more comfortable here in this rain. Able to get much more pace out of the car. And you can see a back marker in front of him. I think that is Zaharov on the hard tires, is it? Or is it? Yeah, I think it was. Getting out of the way there nicely. Another lap down for him. Hard tires, surely not working here. And Williams steadily going around the track. But still taking quite a big amount of curb there. Close to the walls. Not taking too much margin for error. Considering he's got this much of a lead. I would say take it easy, just get to the end.
Indeed, less than 30 laps to go in this one. Whack back on to wet tyres. The softs not working out for him here. Zaharov down pit lane. I believe that is probably going to be for some wets as well. Sonneveld, his race went from the highs of being in that front train to being the lows near the back of the running field. 14 drivers remain out of our 18 starters, and Cameron Roger has fallen a lap down, but still in this race, still in the top 10. So let's not switch to him because he'll throw it into the wall again. We'll stay with Williams at the moment, who is leading this way nicely into the tunnel. Lalu is about 4.5 to 5 seconds off of Barbakov and is going to want that P2, of course, P2 being his highest finish of the season. He got it at Silverstone, he got it at Le Mans. Can he get it here in Azure, or will it be another third matching his results in Malaysia? Barbakov, 8th position in championship, highest result 6th so far, so a second would be amazing for him, and a good way to come in towards the end of this championship. Obviously only 2 more rounds after this, and I cannot wait to find out where we are going in the first weekend of August. But we are looking at Lalu wobbling his way slightly through. It looks like the gap slowly closing to Barbakov.
Yeah, this lap Barbakov really lost quite a lot of time to Williams again, about 2 seconds, 2.5 even on that last lap, and also losing about a second, 8/10 to Jukka-Pekka Lalu. So Lalu indeed starting to catch up quite a bit to Barbakov. Gap down to around 3.5 seconds now.
7 drivers still on the lead lap, and somehow one of those is Ivanov in the issues that he's been having. But here is Roger chasing down Morville. Could this be an opportunity to move into 8th? DRS will open their use of push to pass as well. DRS back open. He looks to the inside. Oh, that is very close indeed, as Morville has to cut the chicane ever so slightly. He's going to have to give back that time. But Roger definitely dived in a bit too late to try and make that move. But he's looking for P8 and he risked it all, not reaping any reward. So far, he taps the inside wall. He's not going to want that. Morville going a little bit of a wobble on front of him. But let's see if they calm it down. I don't think they are. There's a little bit of a tap. Morville's going for the pits. And all of that was unnecessary. And Roger could have just stayed behind a few extra corners. But he moves into P8. He has the DRS along the pit straight. I can see it just flicking, opening and closed ever so slightly in these wet conditions. Obviously, you don't want to have less of the drag on the rear wing as you go through what isn't really a straight through here. But Morville into the pits once more. Lalu closing on Barbakov, but not as significantly as the previous lap.
No, only about 2/10 on this lap. The big question now is as well, and I think for most of these drivers, a big unknown as well, how is the degradation on this wet tire? Is this wet tire able to go to the end of the race, or will they have to come in for another set somewhere during this race? Of course, the question is, well, will it stop raining? If it doesn't, then you might have to decide to take another set of the wet tires. If it does stop raining, then of course we have another transition period. As when do you go to those dry tires?
Earlier on, I mentioned that Williams looked very prepared for the wet weather. He went quite late onto those wet tyres. Could that be because the drivers who stopped quite early on in that transition period, as you say, the degradation could be bad enough that they will have to stop again, whereas Williams, he pitted quite late in that in that transition period, as did Prosciutto. Could they possibly go all the way to the end, or was that just because they preferred the soft tyre? I guess we are going to find out as we head into the last 24 or so laps of this race. The gap now about 3 seconds between Lalu and Barbakov. Question is, how hard are they going to race? Is Lalu just going to form a train with Barbakov, or is he going to go for a move? And in these conditions, as we saw with Rogers' attempted overtake on Morville, it can be extremely risky.
It definitely can be, and you can see how little the grip is on this track. Lalu very, very careful, trying to just keep the car on the track Coming up to a back marker, I think that is Thomas Waak.
It looks like it is. Blue flags are up for the driver in front of him there, as Lalu. This isn't going to help him, however, he wasn't close enough. I don't think it's going to hinder him too much either. And he goes through the gap remaining about 3 seconds to Barbakov at the moment as you get back onto the wet part of the circuit. And you can see Barbakov getting closer and closer every time he heads into the chicane. Obviously, the part of the course, you can really see your competitors ahead of you.
Yeah, and that of course helps him as well. You can see a little bit of a dry line forming us, so getting a lot wetter and wetter as the rain still comes down outside of that dry line. So it's getting trickier if you just misplace one of those tires slightly off that drying line. You lose quite a lot of grip, and there is already such little margin for error here at the Azure Grand Prix. So this doesn't make it much easier, as we see Lalu almost losing the car there coming into Saint-Devote, but is able to somehow keep it together, get it straightened out again and go on. But of course that's going to lose him a bit of time again to Stoyan Barbakov in front.
Almost attempting a little bit of heroics into there, but he keeps it all together, coming out and keeping it out of the barrier. But he's just lost that little bit of time. Not too much to Barbakov, and he still has a significant amount of time to left in this race to close up and move that position, because Williams 18 seconds clear of Barbakov. He's out of this. He's into the lead unless Williams makes some sort of mistake, which we've not seen at any of the three previous races that he's competed this season. I think he's going to be able to get through this without any issues. Lalu double lock up though into the chicane. As you say, that dry line forming. Could this be an invitation for the drivers who are a couple of laps down to test the waters, or test the dry line, so to speak, and have another jump onto those dry tyres? The rain definitely looking a lot lighter now.
Seems
in fact, it's looking at our live timing report. The sun is clearly in the sky, so looks like we're going to get a second transition period, which is going to make this once again a very interesting part in the race when our driver's going to try and make that call. But Ivanov, DRS open, he hits the inside wall. Does he hit the outside? I don't know, but it looks like his car is still in one piece, and he's still over the back end of Hanko, as the Royal Blue racing drivers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something we saw in the Academy series, but did not come to fruition by the end of the race. Could it come to fruition for the Royal Blue drivers? We shall have to wait and see. Ivanov looking to ruin that party. And who else but Cameron Roger back into P7. Ivanov is going to pit. That is definitely to repair some damage, but could it be dry tyres? Because Van der Niet, his teammate, is already onto the softs.
Yeah, it's once again, we saw earlier in the transition period, around the 125 is what they can still do on those dry tires. And that's the pace that William is doing at the front as well. So could be possible. Of course, very, very tricky with that dry line. If you go off it by 1 centimeter on these dry tires, you're done. And you're going to go straight into the wall. But if you can stay on that dry line, I think it's very much possible to gain some time, as we see, I think, some parts from Dmitry Zarov. Last time we saw the transition period be around 10 laps from wet to dry. 22 laps to go in this race. I think we're going to have to see everybody come to those dry tires if it doesn't rain again.
Indeed, that could throw into the mix Lalu back possibly up into P2 as we look at Roger, who's now in looks like a fight with Ivanov. Now, this is a two different compound of tyres, of course. Ivanov on the softs, Roger on the wet. Which one is going to be the best tyre at the moment? And this is going to be a good way to see visually as Roger taps the outside wall. Keep it clean, Cameron. Let's get to the end as he slows it down for the chicane. As you say, the dry line definitely looking to benefit those soft tyres, but the moment you step a tyre off of it, it could end in disaster for anyone who is risking it at the moment. And Roger definitely keeping on the rear end of Ivanov, so those softs don't look like they're coming too much into play for an undercut over anyone at this point in time.
But you can see indeed on those drier patches, the traction is just massively in favor of Viktor Ivanov. But then indeed these kind of corners, I was gonna say Ivanov gains a lot, or sorry, loses a lot to Cameron Roger. Roger makes a bit of a mistake there, but you can see in the corners where you're just a little bit on or off that line, like here, you can see Ivanov just loses a lot of time. Then on the traction zones where it is dry, he runs away with it. So it's definitely not a straightforward choice here to go to those dry tires. But it's definitely close. If the track dries up just a little bit more, I think...
Lalu's out! The championship leader, Lalu, is out of the race. And that is going to surely be a really big opportunity for Picciuto. If Picciuto wins this race, which I know sounds like a massive out there, but if Picciuto wins this race, he could take the lead of this championship. What has happened to Lalu? A real opportunity to continue to dominate this championship thrown away as he exits the chicane. What has happened? Is it the drying circuit that has thrown him off as he heads into the swimming pool section?
That's just a disconnect.
That is heartbreaking. I think that's worse than a mistake. Because a mistake, at least you can blame yourself. In this way, you can't blame anything. Lalu's championship defense could be really struck deep here. Because if Williams does win this race, as he it looks like he's going to be doing, it's going to slash the lead of the championship to just 7 points. This is the first time Lalu is going to be finishing outside the top 10 and the first retirement of the season for him. A real shame as Cameron Roger stops for the soft compound tyres as he comes out just ahead of, is that a back marker or a
Smith,
contender? Is Smith on the wets? Look, as you said, the softs just getting a really good launch on the traction zones, and P8 for Roger right now. He's got Hanko and Mancini ahead. This could be a nice result if he manages to get himself through to the end as Morville comes into the pits. Sonnevel into the pits as well. But Ivanov P4, Vandeneyk P5, both of them a lap off your leader. However, they are about 47 seconds off of your top 3. So it doesn't look like getting onto these softs is going to help them break that podium for the Royal Blue drivers, but they are looking very confident indeed.
They most definitely are, and Roger keeping the car on track now is important for him. Top 10 position definitely on the cards. Mancini also coming in to get those soft tires, just the top 3 effectively still to pit for those wet tires. Hanko, Smith and Wak also, but of course they are not really in the race. Question is, who is going to be the first to bite that bullet out of the Royal Blue guys at the front? Williams, Barbakov, Picciuto. Of course, there's massive gaps between the two, basically 20 seconds each, and so they have a bit of room to play with. It's not like they are very much under threat of undercutting or overcutting each other.
I was going to say, massive gap between Barbakov and Picciuto. I wonder what happened there, because that gap was about 3 seconds, and now it's almost 20 seconds. So Picciuto, he could really have benefited from the issues now for Lalu. He is obviously going to benefit with a good podium result. However, he could have got himself a second position, but no, Barbakov looking to get his first podium and a nice P2 at that.
Quite a while ago, but I'm not sure exactly what happened here. I guess he might have gone straight in the Nouvelle Chicane.
Let's have a look.
Surely that wouldn't have been 10 seconds that you lose there. Yeah, just misses the corner. Barely even tries to make it. But this is not 10 seconds that you lose there. He gives up the time that he gains, which is good. Nice from him. But still uncertain to where he lost that 20 seconds ish.
Indeed, most drivers now onto dry compound tyres. We're looking at Williams, Barbacov, Prosciutto, top three, who are still on the wets. There's no need to risk it getting onto the softs and try and increase the time when it's too early for them. They were obviously very late, all three of them were very late in the transition onto the wet compound tyres, so I expect the same back onto the dries. Hanko, their teammate, also still on the wets, and Wack, who decided to try the softs in the wet conditions, is one of the few drivers who remains on the wet tyres at this point in the race, 2 laps off of your leader. When are these drivers going to pit? Looking very dry indeed now, which means the circuit is going to surely benefit those soft compounder tyres. Looking at previous lap times as Williams comes across the line at the moment. What was his last lap have been? A 122.8. Looking at drivers who are on the soft tyres, 122.5. He's matching, which is a real surprise, bearing how dry this circuit looks now.
Yeah, you can look here, Cameron Roger catching up to Hanko, really starting to see that those soft tires benefit the track conditions. They're just quite a bit better, but still that wet line, whoa, as Hanko touches the barrier on the inside of the start-finish there. You can just see how much Cameron gains on these wet tire runners in front of him, especially on the traction again. There's just no way past now. Of course, the wet line is on the outsides of that dry line. So if you go onto that with the slick tires, you're just gonna lose all grip.
Indeed, Prosciutto, the first of the top three to bite that bullet onto the dry compounder tyres. Even though Cameron Roger was able to close up onto Hanko, he's just not able to make that way past. Now, this is going to be a really good opportunity for him. It's the longest DRS area on the circuit. He's going to have to make his car alongside Hanko into the braking zone if he wants to try and confirm this move. It looks like he's got the speed. Has he got the overlap? Yes, he moves to the inside, but he loses the rear end, and he goes into Hanko, and Cameron Roger is around. He's got his front wing. But that is a real shame indeed. Hanko retains 6th position. Cameron Roger retains 7th, but a lot of time lost. Will he pit to repair some damage that we possibly can't see? But that was just under braking. As you're saying, it was soft tyres on the wet part of the circuit.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Just losing all the grip. Into the side of Hanko he went. Somehow still got all the wings attached to the cars. Hanko comes into the pits to repair something, and Barbacov as well. Barbacov and who's that? Hanko, of course, as well. Barbacov, though, is the main one going to those slick tires, the softs, first out of the top 3.
Indeed, it looks like Williams also on the softs as well. So actually, all of them now onto the soft compounder tyre. 30 seconds between Williams and Barbacov. It is 16 seconds between Barbacov and Prosciutto. So the swapping onto the dries closed 4 seconds between the two teammates. But with 15 laps to go in this race, I don't think that Prosciutto is going to be able to close 15 seconds without some sort of issue from the drivers ahead. Roger into P6 then, of course, with Hanko's stop onto soft compounder tyres. But I don't think Hanko is going to be too happy with that instant with Roger. Overall, Van den Eet and Ivanov 4th and 5th, positions that they have been in. They were in that first stint of the race before all of the craziness. The Van den Eet, even after deciding to go, and Ivanov in fact, going on to the dry compounder tyre, even when it was raining, they have retained their 4th and 5th position. Hanko, what's happened, Hanko? On the exit of the pits, it looks like it's his second lap on the dry compounder tyres here. He's lost his front wing.
Yeah, I guess he lost it on the exit. Of course, that part of the track is still dry. Still wet. It's off the wet line here on the inside. Maybe overcooked it a bit on the throttle. No, still okay there. But then, you can see the slightly shining bit of the asphalt. That's where he went onto with those dry tires. No grip whatsoever. The rear spun up, and into the barrier he went. No front wing, and I think that was. Maybe Barbacov even coming through and smashing that front wing. Lucky for him to still have his own.
Indeed, the front end of the car just bumping up into the air as well and into a very fast corner. That's not what you want. Hanko into the pits once again to put on a fresh set of softs and to put on a new front wing. But 13 cars still continue here. And I must say there have been some issues for a lot of drivers here, but it's very individual issues. Drivers just making errors more often than not because of these changing conditions. And it seems to be that it threw a lot of people off. It threw us off. We didn't even realise that we were going to have a wet period during the race, but it has spiced this race up so much. Williams 36 seconds clear out in front, but we're watching Cameron Roger at the moment, P6 from I believe it was 16 on the grid for Cameron Roger. So he has done an absolute phenomenal drive, somehow getting away with the incident with Hanko.
Williams at the front, extending the gap massively. Last lap, gained 4 seconds on Barbukov. So he's definitely once again showing his qualities in these transitioning periods. Really showing the pace. And I think he's even about to lap Kevin Morville for another time there. As he continues to really push that car to the limit. You would think 4 seconds a lap quicker, you don't need to push, just take it easy, get to the end, as we've seen so many times. People just making a small mistake, dipping one tire onto the wet part of the track and spinning into the wall. You want to prevent that, of course. There's no need for him to push, but he's definitely still showing that pace.
Indeed, he's going to want to try and just get to this end now with the gap that he's got. He's running really smooth. We've not seen any issues from Williams, even during both transition periods. He just looks so smooth, no matter what tyre he was on. And a 15.5 fastest lap for him, but not the fastest lap of the race, showing that he isn't pushing as hard as he possibly can. But I think in a circuit like this, you don't want to. Fastest lap at the moment, that belongs to Mirko Mancini of 1:14 flat. No, sorry, that is hands to Hanko. Yeah, so Hanko, even with the issues he has, he is running with the fastest lap of the race, so showing that if he didn't quite get into some of the issues he's been into, opening lap indeed, he was one of the drivers to come down pit lane after that first lap incident. 5 pit stops for him during this race. It's not turned out the way he wanted, but a top 10, if he can get to the end there, I don't think he'll be too upset with the points haul that comes off of that, but he will definitely be thinking what could have been. Look how smooth Williams is, just flying around Azure circuit, just taking in the sights with the almost 43-second gap that he's got over Barbukov, and the gap down to 13 seconds there or thereabouts between Barbukov and Picciuto. It's not closing at any rate that Picciuto is going to be able to attack Barbukov by the end of it.
You have to consider, of course, that fastest lap of Hanko was set when he got those fresh soft tires, and Williams at the front was just managing the train effectively, quite literally conducting everybody to go his pace, and then obviously not going for the fastest lap times then. But then the rain came and everything had to be changed, improvised, but they've definitely done a great job of that. Williams leading by almost over a quarter of a minute now, 3/4 of a minute, which is really impressive. And Barbukov, Picciuto really have nothing to say to him. Last lap 14.6 for Williams, so we said he's not pushing, but he's starting to get closer to that 14.0 that Hanko did as a fastest lap. Of course, still a bit of margin, but a few laps to go as well still.
And he's got the back marker of Ivanov in front of him, P4. He's about to lap everyone apart from the podium so far. And Picciuto's actually not that far up the road. Maybe he's setting himself his own little goal. He's got the win here. Can he lap everyone? I mean, it looks like it possibly could happen with the speed that Williams is showing. Like I said earlier, get this man a drive in the World Championship Series because he is absolutely flying. 3 out of 3 wins so far, 4 out of 4 poles. Can he make it a 4th win here and a win in every race that he has competed in this season in pros? It looks like he will. And he is definitely in with a championship fight. And I don't think you can say that for someone who missed 4 rounds of the championship, that he is going to be in with a championship fight with 2 rounds to go. I've got my fingers crossed that Lalu can recover. Without a win so far this season, he was Mr. Consistency. But a first retirement, and not even his own fault, as he was running within the top 3 was a massive loss for him. Williams, however, going to take full advantage to the detriment of his teammates and get involved in this fight. Ivanov, yes, he's a lap off of Williams. He's 4th in the race. He's 3rd in the championship. It looks like he is indeed going to lose the position in the championship to Williams, but he is going to take he's going to hold on to P4, it looks like, in the championship at the end of this one. Just trying to do as quick a mess as I possibly can, but we'll obviously have a look at the championship standings at the end of this one, with coming up to 9 laps to go. And it looks like there was never a rainy period. The sun's in the sky, the circuit's nice and dry, and the Azure racetrack is once again in its absolute glamour here as Williams goes around almost a minute ahead of the rest of the field. He is absolutely flying.
Last lap, 14.366, another personal best for him. Barbakov, 18.2. So he's gained effectively 4 seconds in that single lap. Also towards Prosciutto, about 2.5 seconds. So he's gaining a massive amount of time, and by this pace, he's definitely going to get past Prosciutto. Will he get past Barbakov? I'm not so sure. And of course, getting past, I mean lapping them.
At this pace, looking at the gap between Barbakov and Prosciutto's last lap time, it could be a last lap or last couple of lap dash for Prosciutto to take P2, because he is closing into Barbakov at this current pace with less than about 9 seconds between them now. So it has been closing down whilst we've been watching Williams. So we could get a P2 fight, which could turn itself onto his head as Williams crosses the line. 13.825, fastest lap of the race. There I am saying he's taking it easy. No, he's not. He knows he's comfortable on these soft tyres.
Yeah, sun's out bright now. Track is drying rapidly. Those wet patches really quite literally evaporating away. And Williams really feeling comfortable to push the car to the limit now. 13.8, fastest lap of the race indeed for him now. Again, also almost 2.5 seconds quicker than Barbakov. And also around 2 seconds quicker than Prosciutto.
This is his own goal now, isn't it? Williams is no longer, I want to win this race. I kind of want to lap everyone in the process, which would be an absolute fantastic feat. Definitely with, obviously, the changing conditions. That's never easy. But Williams has made it look extremely easy for himself. As it looks like Hanko did another pit stop a little bit later in the race because Wack is now in front of him. But I must say that the field, anyone who gets to the end of a race that has been as crazy as this has been extremely safe, as it were. Yes, there's been some front wings off. However, to survive the Azure Grand Prix in mixed conditions, different tyres, different wet and dry tyres needed, they have all proven that they are truly skilled drivers to get through this, as Williams proving that he's the most skilled of them all at the moment on the circuit. But the battles are not over with 7 laps to go. On board Smith chasing down Kevin Morville.
Yeah, battle for P8. Smith looking very strong on his soft tires. Morville Looking a little bit doubtful, however, it seems like Smith has locked up on these tires quite heavily. Quite a big flat spot on those two fronts, which won't be helping him. Yeah, but the tunnel is going to be important for Smith. DRS enabled. Push to pass. Let's see what he's able to do. Morville's also using a bit of push to pass, and Smith not deciding to use that DRS. Maybe unable to do so, but he dives up the inside anyway. He's not going to make the corner, and effectively comes to a complete stop. I guess trying to give the position back to Morville, but Morville was actually still alongside, not able to turn in there. But battles indeed still going on, but the wet patches, especially outside of the track limits, are still there, of course.
Indeed, Smith does give that position back to Morville then, and some time with it as well. So, yes, there was a bit of contact, but I don't think anything protestable on either driver's side there. Just a mistake, and neither of them have lost any positions. They'll continue to fight. Sonneveld a little while behind on the circuit, so he's not going to benefit from that at all. But Smith is going to be wanting to try and take this 8th position as cleanly as he can this time, as the gap between Barbakov and Prosciutto remains at about 10 seconds, so it doesn't look like that's going to get any closer before the end of this race. Williams, however, is extremely close on the track to his teammates, and as you say, Barbakov possibly out of the running to be lapped, but Prosciutto getting extremely close to the front end of Williams, who is hunting him down. Second attempt. Can Smith do it this time?
This time on the outside. Morville breaks himself. Goes straight on. Smith is going to take that position. Morville indeed lets him past. Completely outbraked himself. Didn't even get close to making the corner. So Smith up to 8th position. Morville now down to 9th. And I think Sonneveld, he's got enough of a gap towards Sonneveld. Sonneveld is still about 20 seconds behind them. So no need to worry to drop out of that top 10. But has to be careful, of course. Still get to the end of this race. There's about 5 laps to go. Williams now around 4 seconds behind Prosciutto. You can see him there just coming out of the Nouvelle chicane as Williams goes in. So he's about to be lapped, I think. Last lap. Once more personal best and a session fastest lap for Matthew Williams, 13.677. So he's still pushing also this lap. Purple in the second sector. So he's definitely trying his best to try and get past Prosciutto there, to lap him as well. And again, Barbakov is not too far behind him.
Indeed, and I think this just shows you how much these drivers were pushing during those qualifying laps and how precise they really needed to be. Fastest lap obviously covered by Williams, a 1:13.573. The fastest lap in qualifying was a 1:10.761. So it was 3 seconds, almost 3 seconds faster. And you can just see how hard Williams is pushing now. And that sort of blows my mind that this is 3 seconds off of the pace that they were running in the qualifying session. Now, I know he's on older soft tyres. I know he had he has a lot more fuel on board when he was putting in the fastest laps here in the race. Look how close he is to quite a group of back markers ahead of him. It looks like they aren't involved in fights themselves. They're all just sort of getting past and lapping each other, as the craziness of this race has definitely split up the field a little bit into the final stages of this race as Williams comes to go on to the 3rd to last lap. The blue flags will start to wave in front of him, and one of those drivers is, well, not just ahead of both those drivers, is his teammate of Prosciutto. So he still has a little bit of a while to get up to him, but I think he will make it, especially if these 2 drivers in front of him make it not too difficult. I believe Mancini, possibly Roger in front as they go through, and just look how close he is to these walls. Worn soft tyres. He is not leaving anything on the edge, and I'm really surprised because one mistake, he could be in the wall, could be race over, and he's still pushing like it's like he's got to try and make these overtakes.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a bit of a battle in front there. Let's see who that is. I think it is underneath. No, it is Frank Hamming,
Hamming.
which is being replaced by Sonneveld, I think, right? Anyway, he's got him past both of them now, and eyes will be fully set upon that car right in front of him, which is his teammate Cosmo Prosciutto. And
That was Zaharov, who's replacing Frank Hamming for this race, who is now 5 laps down. Sorry, 5 laps. That's an astonishing distance to be behind, but it's not been the race that Zaharov has wanted, with 5 stops in this race. His 6th set of tyres. Obviously, one of the drivers who had to pit on the opening lap following the rollover by Chaspillantis, who went out very early on, but he has said that he's not feeling too bad, Chaspillantis, because he's got another opportunity to go out in the World Championship race, which is coming up very shortly after this one. But 2 laps to go. Williams makes his way through yet another back marker.
also Mirko Mancini, actually. I thought it was already Prosciutto, but another one of the Royal Blues, he's got him past, so there's still quite a way now until Prosciutto. That's Prosciutto coming out of the chicane there, so he's still got about 5-6 seconds towards him, which won't be easy to catch up in 2 laps. Also, the pace now for Barbekov and Prosciutto has dropped to roughly the same pace as Williams, so I think Williams, he's tried his best, but will not just about not be able to lap everybody in this race, as he's just coming out of the final corner to start the final lap of this Azure Grand Prix in the FSR Pro Championship.
Indeed, and what a race it has been for Williams and for all of the drivers. We had about 25 laps of dry running at the beginning of the race before, out of nowhere, we saw a downpour, which made every single driver get onto the wet compounder tyres. One of the last of those drivers to get on the wets was this man here, Williams, and he did it at such a perfect time that he didn't really lose much time at all. In fact, he gained time over the train that was following him. The circuit started to dry up again as the rain stopped, and as you can see, it's like there was no rain at all, and Williams has been commanding his lead ever since that entire first 25 lap stint there or thereabouts. That was less than half a second to P2 and less than 5 seconds to the rest of the train. But he is now over a minute ahead of P2. He is almost lapping P3, but he has lapped everyone up to P4. 5 drivers out, 13 finishers, but Williams has started 4 races this season, all of them from pole, and he will be the winner of each of them, the only repeat winner this year, and it is 4 for 4 for the Royal Blue Racing driver Williams, who is closed the championship lead to just 7 points following Lalu's demise after an unfortunate disconnect. Ivanov crosses the line in P4, Mancini 7th, Wack 11th, but it is looking like Barbekov and Prosciutto will definitely be in P2 and P3 in that order. As we watch Prosciutto, he's only just coming through the hairpin. That's how close Williams was to lapping his teammate on the podium. But what a podium lockout from the Royal Blue Racing team, and that is going to be extremely helpful, not only to Williams' Drivers' Championship hopes, it's going to be extremely helpful to the Royal Blue Racing Constructors and Teams Championship, as they will extend the lead. Here comes Barbekov to take P2 in this race, and he is happy with that. His first podium of the season for Barbekov, whose previous personal best was just 6th. And here comes Prosciutto to cross the line for his 4th third position of the season, matching his personal best, which he got at Japan, Silverstone, and at Le Mans. But it is going to be the win for Williams, who returns to pit lane. What a race that was.
Yeah, incredible race. Mixed weather always makes things exciting, especially when you do not expect it. And I think this was the most difficult race for all of these drivers that they will see this season. And it is the tight streets of the Azure. And it is suddenly a mixed weather race. I think they all cope with it relatively well. Of course, the best that did it is Matthew Williams and Royal Blue in general, getting that top 3 lockout. Netrex with Ivanov and Danny van der Niet losing out a little bit, but still getting a good amount of points in P4 and P5. But they had their issues, especially during those transition periods. And I would say a very great job for El Presidente Cameron Roger, finishing down in that 6th position.
Especially since he started right at the back of the field and moved through with a great strategy. The race results then here at Azure. Williams takes a dominant victory ahead of teammates. Barbakov getting his first podium and Prosciutto his 4th of the season. Victor Ivanov in 4th position for Netrex, just ahead of his teammate Van der Niet, who finished in P5. As you say, an amazing result for Cameron Roger. P6, his 2nd finish of the season. That is it, his 2nd finish. And what a result here at Azure. Mancini gets into 7th position for the Royal Blue Racing team, with Harry Smith in 8th. Kevin Morville did recover from his incident with Roger down in P9, but I'm sure he's going to be a bit irked with the contact. And Sonneveld finishes his race here in the Pro Championship, unlike the Academy race a little bit earlier, and he takes a top 10 result. Wack then finishing in 11th position. Hanko and Zarov coming home a little bit later down the line. A few retirements then. Championship leader Lalu is not going to be happy with that, and the 3 Ground Effect teams drivers all coming at the back, with Jasper Lantis rolling over at the end, but like I said, he will be back out in the World Championship race. What a fantastic race that was, and that's going to have a significant impact on the championship. As you can see, Jakapeka Lalu only 5 points ahead of Prosciutto, who is only 2 points ahead of Matthew Williams. This has become a Royal Blue Racing Championship fight with 2 rounds to go, and it's going to become a very in-house championship battle there. But as you can see, Williams stepping in at round 5, and he's only 7 points off of the championship lead. This is going to be extremely close. Ivanov slips down to P4, Van der Niet into P5, but all of them still within this championship goal. Mancini there in 6th, also 103 points, definitely a driver you could still count in. Barbakov's P2 has placed him definitely as a driver who could still get his name involved for the championship fights, and I think this is going to drag out all the way to the last race, but Williams is definitely putting his name into the ring.
Yeah, he definitely is showing his performances over these last 4 races. Utterly flawless, and if he keeps up this pace, he's definitely one to watch for that championship win. 2 races to go. It's still unknown where we are going though, but of course after the World Championship race later today, we will get to know that. We do know when the next 2 races are, of course. Next round, 7th of August, a little bit of a summer break. And then on the 21st of August, we've got the final race of the season, which is undoubtedly going to be very exciting with this championship battle between effectively the entire top 3. But of course, for now, the World Championship is coming up next. Obviously brought to you by our sponsors, 3D Wrap, SimLab, Masita eSports, and of course the broadcast made possible by VCO eSports. A big thanks to all of them, of course, and of course a massive thanks to everybody that is watching from home, supporting us, and making us happy in getting these events to you. But I think for now, from us, from this Pro Championship, it is time to close off. Big thank you to you as well, Richard, for doing this alongside me. And hopefully we'll be back in just a few weeks' time to see what will happen in this Pro Championship. But until then, goodbye.